Good evening, my friends. Tonight we speak of a name, not a word spoken by the mouth, but a reality spoken by consciousness itself. A name so intimate that it has been misunderstood, worshipped from a distance, and repeated without recognition. And yet this name is not distant. It is not external. It is not symbolic. It is you. I am. When Moses asked for the name of God, the answer was not poetic. It was exact. I am that I am. This was not a label. It was a revelation of function. Tonight, I want to show you how to ask after I am, not before it, not outside of it, not hoping it will respond, but from it, because everything you have ever tried to manifest faster has been slowed by one misunderstanding. You have been asking as someone who is not yet, and I am does not answer requests made from separation. It only responds to assumption. From the moment you were born, you have been saying I am all day long, not aloud but inwardly. I am tired. I am unlucky. I am overlooked. I am not enough. And life has been answering every one of those statements with exact precision, because I am is not a phrase. It is the creative position. Scripture tells us, let the weak say, I am strong. Not will be, say I am. This was not motivational speech. This was instruction on how creation works. You do not move toward what you want. You move from what you assume you are. This is why most prayer fails, not because God does not hear, but because the asking is done from the wrong identity. People ask to become. I am only responds to those who ask as being. Jesus never asked God to act. He assumed the Father had already heard him. Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. Before Lazarus walked, before the stone moved, before the evidence appeared. This was not gratitude for what was coming. It was gratitude from identity. This is the difference that collapses time. To ask after I am is to speak from completion, and completion is speed. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything becomes precise. You cannot ask I am to give you something. You must ask as I am by declaring who you are now. I am does not grant requests. I am becomes what is assumed. This is why ask and ye shall receive was always paired with belief, not belief as hope, but belief as acceptance. The Greek root of belief implies to live as true. So when you say I am healthy, while feeling like someone trying to become healthy, you are not asking after I am. You are contradicting it. I am cannot answer contradiction. But when you say quietly, inwardly, without force or drama, I am whole, and you allow yourself to rest in that identity, the nervous system responds, perception reorganizes, behavior adjusts, and the world follows. Science confirms what Scripture encoded. The subconscious mind accepts identity as command. It does not argue with the statement, I am. It organizes the body, the emotions, and the environment to make that statement true. This is why speed is not about effort. Speed is about alignment. To ask after I am is to stop asking questions and start occupying states. You do not ask, how can I be confident? You assume, I am confident. You do not ask, when will I be free? You assume, I am free. And the assumption is not shouted, it is felt. Feeling is the language of I am. Not emotional excitement, but the quiet sense of reality. The calm knowing. The inner posture of someone for whom this is already true. This is why Neville Goddard said to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Fulfillment is not an outcome. It is a state of identity. Now here is the discipline. You do not repeat, I am endlessly. You return to it. Throughout the day, you notice where you have slipped back into I will be. I hope, I'm trying. And without judgment, without struggle, you shift. You move from hoping to being, from waiting to dwelling, from asking to assuming. This is repentance, as Christ meant it, a change of mind, a change of state, a change of residence. And the moment you change residence, time collapses. Because time only exists between states. When you live as one who already is, there is no delay to wait through. Delay only belongs to the one who believes they are not yet. This is why manifestation becomes fast when identity is clean. Clean identity produces clean results. Now, let us address fear, because fear is simply imagination misdirected. Fear is asking after I am incorrectly. Fear says, I am unsafe. Fear says, I am about to lose. Fear says, I am not protected, and life obeys. So you do not fight fear. You replace the I am beneath it. I am guided. I am held. I am secure. Not as affirmation, as residence. You live from it. You make decisions from it. You speak from it. You breathe from it. And the body agrees. And when the body agrees, the world aligns. This is why Christ could say, take no thought. He was not dismissing responsibility. He was pointing to identity. Take no thought means do not leave the state. Do not abandon I am for worry. Worry is asking after I am as lack. Trust is asking after I am as being. Now understand this deeply. You cannot ask I am to change something while remaining identified with the version of you that needs it changed. That identity is the delay. So the moment you feel the urge to ask, stop and shift. Do not say I want. Say I am. And then feel what it would feel like to no longer want. That feeling is the answer. And the world moves to confirm it. This is not magic. This is order. The subconscious mind, the nervous system, and the environment all respond to the same command, identity. When identity changes, everything downstream changes automatically. This is why manifestation becomes effortless. You stop pushing the river. You step into the current. Now let this settle quietly. There is no rush, no urgency, no performance. Just the recognition that every time you say I am, you are issuing a creative command. So choose carefully, choose gently, choose deliberately. Ask after I am by being what you seek. Remain there, live there, rest there, and let life faithful, exact, and obedient answer back with speed. Be still now and know I am. And as you remain with this recognition, something profound begins to settle into your nervous system. Not as an idea, but as orientation. You stop asking questions that come from insecurity. You stop phrasing desire as distance. You stop approaching life as if it must be persuaded. Because now you understand, I am is not listening for requests. I am is responding to identity. Every time you say I am, you are not describing yourself. You are selecting a state, and states are causal. This is why speed increases the moment identity becomes singular. When there is no inner contradiction, no part of you asking while another part doubts, the signal is clean. The subconscious receives it without resistance. The body relaxes into it. Behavior aligns with it. And the world follows the path of least resistance, confirmation. This is what Scripture meant when it said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. A divided I am creates delay. A unified I am creates momentum. So now your practice is no longer effortful manifestation. It is inner fidelity. You become faithful to the version of you who already is. Not aggressively, not obsessively, but quietly and consistently. You notice when the old identity tries to speak. You hear thoughts like, I'm still waiting. I'm not there yet. What if it doesn't happen? And instead of arguing, you recognize them for what they are, voices of a former state. You do not fight them. You outgrow them. You gently return to I am. I am calm. I am supported. I am chosen. I am complete. And then you stop talking, because I am does not require repetition. It requires residence. You live from it. You make choices from it. You move through the day from it. You rest from it. And something subtle but unmistakable happens. Your behavior changes without instruction. You speak differently. You walk differently. You decide differently, not because you are trying to impress reality, but because identity is steering you. Science would call this coherence. Scripture called it faith. Faith was never belief in something unseen. Faith was living as if it were already seen. This is why Jesus never rushed. He was never trying to make something happen. He moved from identity, not urgency. And identity has no need to hurry. Hurry belongs to those who believe time is against them. I am knows time serves state. So you stop chasing outcomes. You stop measuring progress constantly. You stop checking the mirror of the world every hour. You understand now that checking is doubt disguised as vigilance. Instead, you remain. Remain in the assumption. Remain in the feeling of already being. Remain loyal to the state even when nothing seems to be moving. because movement is happening beneath visibility. Roots grow before branches appear. Alignment forms before evidence arrives. Identity settles before circumstance shifts. This is the order. And the moment you stop interrupting the process with doubt, the process accelerates. Acceleration without effort. Now, something else changes too. Your imagination becomes disciplined, not constrained, but obedient. It no longer wanders into worst-case futures. It no longer rehearses loss or delay. It waits for instruction from I am, and I am instructs through feeling. When you imagine now, it is brief, natural, almost incidental, a quiet scene, a subtle sense of relief, a moment of normalcy, where what you desire feels ordinary. Ordinary is the signal. When something feels ordinary inwardly, it is inevitable outwardly. So you no longer dramatize desire. You normalize it, and normalization is manifestation in motion. This is why gratitude begins to appear without effort. Not gratitude for something coming, but gratitude from something already true. Gratitude becomes your natural emotional climate, because there is no longer a sense of absence. Absence dissolves in I am. And when absence dissolves, fear has no foothold. So if fear arises, you do not suppress it. You trace it back to the identity beneath it. Fear is always saying, I am not safe. I am losing. I am alone. You answer fear not with reassurance, but with replacement. You replace the I am. I am held. I am guided. I am protected. And then you stop. Because once I am is corrected, fear has no language left. Now let this final movement settle gently. You do not need to ask anymore. You do not need to seek permission. You do not need to convince anything. You only need to remain faithful to I am. Faithful when things are quiet. Faithful when things are uncertain. Faithful when evidence lags behind knowing. Because the moment you speak from I am, creation listens, and it answers not with words, but with form. Remain still now. Remain aware. Remain as I am. And let speed take care of itself. And as you remain faithful to I am, you begin to notice a quiet authority entering your life. An authority that does not assert itself, yet is unmistakable. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to life. You no longer feel compelled to justify your desires. You no longer feel the urgency to prove that something is working. Because being has replaced seeking, this is the moment where asking truly ends. Not because you have received everything yet, but because the one who is asking has dissolved. There is only the one who is, and I am does not beg. I am does not plead. I am does not wonder if it is heard. I am knows. This knowing is not intellectual certainty, it is bodily. It settles into your breath, your posture, your tone. You move slower, but with more direction. You speak less, but with more weight. You listen more deeply, because there is no longer a rush to get something from the moment. This is where life begins to cooperate in ways that feel almost effortless. Opportunities appear without strain. Solutions surface without forcing. People respond differently, not because you demanded it, but because your state invites it. Identity speaks louder than words. And now, something else becomes clear. Speed was never about time. Speed was about resistance. The more you argued with reality internally, the longer things took. The more you questioned your worth, your timing, your direction, the more fragmented the signal became. But now the signal is clean. Iam is singular. There is no but, no what if, no when. I will be too. Just presence. And presence collapses distance. This is why Christ said, the kingdom of God is at hand. Not coming, not approaching, at hand. Because the kingdom is not a place. It is a state of being entered through I am. When you live as though it is already true, you are not lying to yourself. You are aligning with law. Law does not wait for permission from evidence. Law responds to assumption. And assumption, when held without contradiction, becomes fact. So you stop rehearsing the past. You stop anticipating the future. You live from the center of now, not passively, but creatively. You become careful with your I am statements, not fearful, but precise. I am learning. I am expanding. I am guided. I am steady. Each one is a direction. Each one is a command. And because you are no longer scattering identity across 1,000 inner voices, the command carries weight. This is why manifestation accelerates, not because you did something new, but because you stopped doing what was interfering. You stopped leaving yourself. Now, when challenges arise, and they will, you do not interpret them as signs of failure. You interpret them as moments to remain, to stay rooted in I am instead of reverting to reaction. This is where most give up, and this is where mastery is born. You remain calm while the old pattern completes. You remain faithful while the bridge of events assembles. You remain grounded while appearances rearrange. And because you do not flinch, reality adjusts faster. This is not patience born of waiting. It is patience born of certainty. You know now that asking after I am does not mean speaking louder, affirming more, or visualizing harder. It means being unwavering. Unwavering in identity. Unwavering in inner posture. Unwavering in the quiet, knowing that what is assumed must appear. So you rest more. You trust more. You interfere less. And life responds accordingly. Not as reward. Not as miracle, but as law. Now, let this final truth settle deeply. The fastest manifestation is the one that no longer feels urgent. Urgency belongs to those who are not yet. Speed belongs to those who already are. Remain as I am. Remain without tension. Remain without argument. Remain without asking again. And allow the unseen, already instructed, already moving, already aligning, to finish its work. Be still now. I am is enough. And as this remaining deepens, you begin to feel something unmistakable settling into your inner life, a sense that nothing needs to be added and nothing needs to be removed. You are no longer shaping I am. I am is shaping you. This is where the last layer of strain dissolves. You stop monitoring yourself to see if you are doing it right. You stop checking your inner state compulsively. You stop wondering whether you have assumed deeply enough, because depth has replaced effort. The assumption has become so natural that it no longer announces itself. It operates beneath language, beneath thought, beneath conscious direction. You do not say I am with intensity anymore, you move as I am. And movement reveals identity more honestly than words ever could. This is why manifestation now feels quiet, almost understated. You are not waiting for a dramatic shift to convince you. You notice subtle confirmations instead, small alignments, gentle openings, moments where resistance simply isn't there anymore. Not because you forced it away, but because you no longer belong to the state that created it. You have changed residence, and residence determines experience. At this level, even desire changes its tone. Desire no longer sounds like urgency. It feels like recognition. You see something and think, yes, that belongs to the life I am already living inwardly. And because it belongs, there is no anxiety attached to it. You desire without clinging. You imagine without strain. You anticipate without impatience. This is the mark of alignment. Your imagination now serves identity, not lack. It does not wander into fear, because fear has lost its authority. Fear spoke through the old I am. But the old I am no longer speaks from the center. And when fear does arise as an echo, a reflex, a remnant, you do not wrestle with it. You simply notice that it is no longer true. It has no place to stand. You return to I am, not with force, but with familiarity. I am steady. I am guided. I am already on the path. And the return is instant. This is what makes manifestation fast. Not the intensity of belief, but the speed of return. How quickly you come back to who you are. How little time you spend wandering in contradiction. The faster you return, the faster life reflects. Because life is not responding to your best moments. It is responding to your most lived state. And your most lived state now is being calm, being assured, being inwardly complete. This changes how you experience uncertainty. Uncertainty no longer feels threatening. It feels open, like space where intelligence can move. You do not rush to fill it with conclusions. You allow it to remain open until direction reveals itself naturally. And it always does, because direction comes from I am, not from analysis. You begin to sense when to act without forcing yourself to act. You feel when to wait without calling it delay. You trust these impulses because they are no longer mixed with fear. This is inspired action, not dramatic, not heroic, but precise. One step at the right moment is more powerful than 100 steps taken from doubt. And now your relationship with effort changes entirely. You still apply yourself. You still care. You still build. But effort no longer feels like compensation for unworthiness. It feels like expression of alignment. You work because it feels right to work. You rest because it feels right to rest. You speak because truth wants to move through you. Nothing is forced. Nothing is withheld. And this is why life begins to feel cooperative again. Not perfect, not predictable, but responsive. Responsive to your state. Responsive to your assumption. Responsive to your I am. So now, let this be your final understanding, not something to repeat, but something to live. You do not ask after I am by speaking louder. You ask after I am by remaining truer. Truer to the identity you have chosen. Truer to the state you now occupy. Truer to the quiet, knowing that you are no longer becoming, you are being. Remain there. Let speed be the natural result of alignment. Let manifestation be the echo of identity. Let life complete what I am has already begun. Be still now and live as the answer. And as you live from this answer, something settles that cannot be reversed. You stop needing confirmation, not because confirmation never comes, but because your sense of reality is no longer borrowed from appearances. You no longer wait for the world to tell you who you are. You move first, quietly, inwardly, and the world follows. This is the final maturation of asking after I am. You are no longer forming statements. You are no longer correcting thoughts. You are no longer doing manifestation. You are embodying authorship. Every moment now becomes a place of origin. What you feel yourself to be in that moment is what the moment must become. There is no gap, no negotiation, no delay beyond what form requires to arrange itself. This is why life feels slower on the surface, yet faster underneath. You are not rushing outcomes, but outcomes are no longer stalled by inner contradiction. The resistance that once stretched time has dissolved. Time serves coherence. You notice this most clearly when something that once would have unsettled you no longer does. A delay, a silence, a change of plan. The old self would have reacted immediately, interpreting, fearing, abandoning the state. But now you remain. Remaining has become instinct. You do not cling to I am. You do not defend it. You simply do not leave it. And because you do not leave it, nothing can take it from you. This is where peace becomes immovable, not because nothing happens, but because nothing happening can uproot identity. You understand now that identity is the only thing that ever needed guarding, and guarding it never required force, only loyalty. Loyalty to being. This loyalty refines your inner speech until it becomes almost silent. You no longer narrate yourself endlessly. You no longer explain life to yourself. You experience it directly, from center, without commentary. And silence becomes fertile. In this silence, guidance arises without effort. Not as commands, not as pressure, but as clarity. You know when to act, you know when to wait, you know when to let something pass. Knowing replaces noise. And because of this, even action feels different. You are no longer acting to make something happen. You are acting because something is already happening through you. Action becomes participation, not manipulation. This is why fatigue leaves. Strain belongs to the one who was trying to become. Energy belongs to the one who already is. You rest better. You focus more easily. You recover faster. Not because life has become easy, but because you are no longer divided. Division was the weight. Now there is unity. And unity moves cleanly through the world. So if there is one thing to remember, not as instruction, but as orientation, it is this. You do not manifest by asking loudly. You manifest by remaining accurately. Accurate to the I am you have chosen. Accurate to the state you now live from. Accurate to the quiet, knowing that nothing essential is missing. When you remain accurate, life aligns quickly. When you drift, you return quickly. And the speed of return becomes the speed of manifestation. This is mastery, not perfection, not control, but fidelity. So let the days continue. Let forms assemble. Let outcomes arrive in their own precise order. You do not need to watch them. They know where to find you. You are not seeking the answer anymore. You are living as it. Remain here and let everything else follow. And as you continue living from this place, the final resistance dissolves the resistance to simplicity. You realize now that nothing about this law was ever complex. It was only unfamiliar. The mind wanted steps, formulas, reassurance, but I am never asked for methods. It asked for agreement. Agreement with truth, agreement with being, agreement with the identity you have chosen to live from. This is why everything quiets when you stop asking how. How belongs to the one who is not yet. I am belongs to the one who already is. So the need to strategize fades. You still plan, still act, still build, but without inner tension. You are no longer calculating outcomes as proof of worth. You are participating in life as expression. Expression has no anxiety. This is where your imagination becomes effortless. It no longer needs to visualize vividly or hold scenes tightly. It moves naturally toward what matches your state. Thoughts align on their own, feelings settle where they belong, and this alignment creates momentum without noise. You may notice that people begin to treat you differently, not dramatically, not suddenly, but subtly. Respect where there was friction, ease where there was resistance, openness where there was hesitation, not because you demanded it, but because identity precedes interaction. The world always responds to who is present, not who is trying. And now, presence is natural. You do not announce confidence. You do not perform certainty. You do not insist on outcomes. You simply remain. Remaining has become your strength. And from this strength, patience arises, not the patience of waiting, but the patience of knowing. Knowing that whatever has been assumed must appear. Knowing that nothing can be delayed indefinitely once resistance is gone. Knowing that life moves at the speed of clarity. Clarity accelerates everything. You see clearly what belongs to you and what does not. You no longer chase what contradicts your state. You allow misaligned paths to fall away without resentment. You trust that alignment always selects correctly. This trust is not blind. It is earned through experience. You have watched I am respond too many times to doubt it now. You have seen how quickly reality reorganizes when identity is clean. You have felt the difference between effort and coherence always wins. So when moments of uncertainty arise, as they will, you do not collapse into old patterns. You pause. You return. You remember who you are being. Return is immediate. No ritual. No struggle. No correction. Just recognition. I am here. I am steady. I am enough. And then you move on. This ability to return quickly is what makes manifestation fast. Not speed of thought, but speed of alignment. The shorter the distance between reaction and return, the faster life reflects. And now that distance is almost gone. So let the days unfold. Let evidence appear without commentary. Let life continue arranging itself around the center you have chosen. You are no longer managing the process. You are no longer supervising the law. You are simply living from I am. And that is enough. Be still now, not because something is ending, but because something is stable. Remain as you are. Remain without effort. Remain without asking again. And let the unseen, already instructed, already faithful, already exact, continue to make the invisible visible. I am has spoken, and life is answering, and now gently we come to rest. Not because anything is finished, but because everything essential has already been set in motion. There is nothing left to ask, nothing left to prove, nothing left to adjust. You have returned to the place where asking dissolves into being. I am was never something you reached for. I am was the ground you stepped back onto. From here, life does not need instructions. It already has them. Every moment you remain faithful to this identity. Every breath you take without leaving yourself. Every choice you make from being rather than wanting. The law continues its work, quietly, precisely, without fail. So let the world move. Let time arrange itself. Let form catch up to what has already been assumed. You do not need to watch. You do not need to manage. You do not need to ask again. Remain as I am. Remain steady when nothing seems to change. Remain calm when everything begins to change. Remain rooted when old echoes pass through, because what you are now living from cannot be undone by appearances. You are no longer becoming the answer. You are living as it. Be still now. Rest in this knowing, and let life obedient, intelligent, and exact continue to reveal what I am has already declared true. You do not need more time. You do not need another sign. You do not need to feel ready. The very fact that you're here, hearing these words, is the confirmation your spirit has been begging the outer world to deliver. And I say to you now, with the force of the eternal I am, you were never meant to be ruled by doubt. It was not part of the original design. It is not a flaw. It is not humility. It is not realism. It is a lie, a hypnotic trance of powerlessness accepted by a mind that forgot it was God. You have been told to be careful, to be reasonable, to be realistic, and so you assumed that confidence was arrogance, that faith was fantasy, that boldness was sin. But I say to you with holy fire, the real sin is doubt. The real blasphemy is pretending you are separate from the thing you desire. Every time you say, I hope, instead of I am, you crucify the truth of who you are. Every time you ask the mirror to change first, you bind yourself to illusion. Every time you rehearse limitation in the language of logic, you betray the one who speaks within you, softly, always saying, I am already this. This voice, the sacred voice, it doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't wait for permission. It declares. And if you have ears to hear it, then this moment is not instruction. It is initiation. You are not watching this because you're curious. You're watching because the part of you that never forgot, the God seed buried beneath your stories, is beginning to stir. It's whispering, enough, enough surviving, enough waiting, enough doubting. And it doesn't want inspiration. It wants authority. It wants dominion. Not over others, but over the field of assumption, over the only kingdom that matters, the state from which you think, feel, and move. So I'm not here to teach you how to doubt less. I am here to show you how to destroy it, how to uproot it from the soil of your being and burn it in the flame of remembrance. And the flame is this: what you assume to be true of yourself with feeling must, by law, become your world. There is no external permission, no process, no earning, only assumption, only state. You are not here to understand this intellectually. You are here to feel the fracture between your soul and your pattern and to close it. You are here to awaken, to return, to walk out of the prison you built with what if and but how and maybe someday, and into the throne room of I already am. Because that's the secret. The door was never locked. You simply forgot that you built it. Doubt is not a thought. It is not a question. It is not a harmless curiosity. Doubt is a personality. It is a cloak, a frequency, a spiritual costume that you have worn so long you've mistaken it for your skin. And if you feel stuck, if you feel like your manifestations waver and fade, if you feel like nothing ever fully clicks into place, it is not because you're doing something wrong. It is because you're still being someone you are not, the doubter. You speak the affirmations. You visualize. You try to remain positive. But underneath it all, in the quiet spaces between your efforts, there is a voice. And that voice is not merely thinking, it is being. I don't know if this will work. I hope I can shift this. What if I'm missing something? And you call this realism. You call it being honest. But the law calls it assumption. And the law is not emotional. It does not reward intention. It does not bless hard work. It only echoes who you are being, not on the outside, but in the invisible world of self-concept. And here is the cruel paradox. The longer you wear the identity of the doubter, the more life will reward you with proof that you're right. Because the mirror has no choice. It is not punishing you. It is obeying you. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is defined, not by your dreams, but by your daily state, your baseline frequency, your default identity. So I must ask you, not what do you want, but who do you think you are? Who do you feel yourself to be when you wake up in the morning, when you walk into the room, when things go silent and there's nothing to perform for? That version, the one you return to without effort, that is the architect of your life. And if that version is still waiting, still hoping, still shrinking around what's realistic, then doubt is not something you deal with. It's something you live from. This is the hidden root of stuckness. It's not failure of technique. It's not lack of knowledge. It is loyalty to a broken identity, a secret agreement with a self that cannot receive what you've asked for. And as long as you stay loyal to that self, even subconsciously, nothing will change, because everything already matches. Doubt doesn't live in the question. It lives in the self that's asking the question. And until you retire that version of you, not fix, not heal, but retire, you will keep cycling through the same energetic echo. Different goals, same self, different actions, same vibration. The form changes, but the frequency stays, because you are not stuck in the world. You are stuck in you. And yet, the most glorious truth is this. The moment you stop identifying as the one who doubts, you stop experiencing doubt. It evaporates. It loses access. It becomes irrelevant, because it can only enter where there is resonance. And you, the real you, does not resonate with fear. The real you remembers. So the work is not to silence the thought. The work is to no longer be the one who thinks it, to drop the old mask, to forsake the doubter and return to the throne of I am, because once you no longer identify as the one who waits, there is no more waiting to do. There is only one substance in the world, only one creative force, one unseen root beneath every visible outcome, and that force is assumption, not action, not effort, not willpower. Assumption. That which you dare to feel as true of yourself, even if all senses contradict it, is the very clay from which your world is made. This is not philosophy. This is law, immutable, irrevocable, the same yesterday, today, and forever. You do not move the world by pushing it. You do not ascend by striving. You do not gain power by pretending to be confident. You gain power by assuming the end and living from it as if it were already your natural state. And in doing so, you call forth the forms, the people, the circumstances, the unfolding necessary to match it. Because the law does not reward the worthy, it rewards the faithful. And by faithful, I do not mean morally good, I mean faithful. So saturated with the inner conviction of already having, already being, already existing in the desired reality that nothing can shake it loose. You were told, ask and you shall receive. But I tell you, assume, and it is already done. The asking is symbolic. The prayer is not begging God to intervene. It is identifying as the God who declares and sees it unfold. Your Father, who sees in secret, the secret being your feeling, rewards you openly, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but precisely as fast as your assumption becomes total. But here lies the confusion of men. They think they are assuming when they are merely wishing. They think they are claiming the end, when in truth, they are still identifying with the lack. They speak the words of faith, but feel the sting of delay, and the law listens not to their mouth, but to their inner man. The frequency, not the phrase. You can fool your friends. You can even fool your conscious mind, but you cannot fool the law. It will always reflect back to you the state in which you dwell, not the one you visited during meditation, but the one you live in. The emotional home you return to without effort. That's the true assumption. Not the peak moment, but the default. Not what you shout on stage, but what you whisper to yourself in the dark. So how do you know what you've been assuming? Look around, that's it. Your life is the printout of your persistent feeling of I am. Your relationships, your money, your health, they are not random. They are not trials. They are not punishment. They are feedback. And if you want to change them, you must not fight them. You must change the seed. You must replant the feeling. You must shift the state. This is why doubt is so dangerous, because it interrupts the assumption. It breaks the continuity. It suggests that the end is not certain and therefore keeps you in the limbo of hoping. But the law does not respond to hoping. It responds to being. So I ask you now, what do you dare to assume? Fully, boldly, irrevocably. Not in word, but in feeling. Can you dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled without looking over your shoulder? Can you relax into it without asking when? Can you hold it, not with effort, but with knowing? If so, the law has no choice. Your world must obey, because assumption, not doubt, not fear, not waiting, is the one thing that always hardens into fact. Now we come to the hinge, the bridge, the moment of conversion between knowledge and embodiment. For it is one thing to understand the law, it is another to use it, and use it with finality. And the technique I now give you is not complicated, it is not ceremonial, it does not require candles or chants or rituals. It requires only this: the moment doubt arises, the very instant the shadow of what if begins to cloud the mind, you must not argue with it. You must reverse it immediately and assume the opposite with feeling. This is the mental reversal. You do not reason with doubt. You do not explain. You do not reassure it like a frightened child. That is how the old man survives, by pulling you into emotional dialogue. Instead, you become violent in your refusal to entertain it. You sever it mid-thought. You catch it in its first breath and transmute it, not with denial, but with identity. You replace the lie with a stronger assumption. You feel instantly the version of you for whom this fear is already irrelevant. Let me speak this clearly. Doubt cannot survive in a mind that already lives from the end. The moment you return to the state of the wish fulfilled, the very oxygen of doubt is removed. It cannot find footing. It has nothing to feed on. And so you train yourself, not to prevent doubt, but to become so quick in reversing it that it withers before it can grow. Let's say the doubt comes. What if the money doesn't show up? You do not entertain the spiral. You do not run the numbers again. You do not ask for signs. You immediately shift. I am the one for whom provision is automatic. And you feel the tone of that self, not just the thought, but the emotional vibration. You become the version of you who has already moved beyond the need for proof. And then you walk as that one. You breathe as that one. You respond as that one. The trick is not in saying the right words. It's in occupying the right state. The words are only useful if they reflect that state. The trick works because it bypasses the rational mind and enters the field of being. You cannot outthink doubt. You can only out-identify it. And this you do by moving frequency first, logic last. Every time you reverse a doubt into its fulfilled opposite, you claim more ground in the inner world. You build a new reflex. You establish a new identity default. The mental reversal becomes your sword, and you learn to use it without hesitation. At first, you will notice the doubt. Then you will catch it sooner. Then you will interrupt it. Then, finally, it will stop coming. Not because you mastered fear, but because you no longer resonate with the one who doubts. And that is the secret no one teaches. You don't have to heal doubt. You don't have to process it. You don't have to understand where it came from. You only have to no longer be the one who owns it. You let it knock, and you do not answer. You feel it whisper, and you outsing it. You see its shadow, and you step into light again and again until light is all that's left. This is not trickery. This is sovereignty. This is frequency mastery. This is the law obeyed. And if you do it truly, not once, but as a way of being, doubt will die from starvation, and you will walk, not in effort, but in effortless command. You must become holy ground. You must treat your inner state as sacred, untouchable, set apart from the noise of the world. Because the moment you allow doubt, fear, or contradiction to casually enter, you desecrate the altar of assumption. You vandalize the sanctuary with the graffiti of old identities. And though the world may call this discipline, mindset, or emotional control, I call it what it truly is: consecration. A radical refusal to let what is unworthy of your destiny enter the temple of your being. This is not harshness. It is precision. It is the clarity of one who knows. What I allow within, I decree without. You may not control every thought that arises, but you have full dominion over what you entertain, what you permit, what you nurse into emotional reality. The thoughts may knock, let them, but your inner sanctuary must remain unshaken. Doubt must find no landing strip. Fear must find no open door. You walk as the one who guards the flame. To consecrate the inner world is to say, this space belongs to God, to the I am, and nothing unlike it may stay. And you will feel the resistance to this at first. You will feel the pull to entertain the old story, to emotionally nibble on the familiar poison. But you must become immune, not by effort, but by elevation. You must rise in identity to such a degree that the old frequency cannot reach you.
The lazy mind will tell you this is rigidity. The world will tell you this is delusion. But truth speaks softly, and it says, your consistency determines your creation. What you persist in assuming must become your world. Therefore, what you allow to dwell within you becomes the architecture of your reality. Consecration means you stop compromising with contradiction. You stop debating your worth. You stop giving airtime to the inner saboteur. You stop letting your attention wander through swamps and wastelands. You focus, you return, again and again. Not in tension, but in reverence. You hold your state the way a mother holds her sleeping child, gently, fiercely, unwilling to be disturbed. And over time, the sanctuary becomes strong. The mental atmosphere becomes rarefied. You enter a new dimension of calm, not because life got easier, but because you no longer negotiate with what pulls you back. Doubt may knock, but it sounds foreign now. Fear may whisper, but its voice seems childish. You no longer give it weight because you no longer identify with the one who needs it. This is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about remembering that you are the cause, not the effect. You are the source, not the symptom. And so the inner world becomes your first and only concern. You tend to it, you cleanse it, you guard it not out of fear, but out of awe. Because you now know this is where worlds are born. You do not protect your state out of superstition. You protect it because you are finally awake to its power. And power, once remembered, is never casually exposed. Not all doubt wears the mask of fear. Some of it is clever. Some of it smiles and nods and says, I'm just being honest. It dresses up as logic. It pretends to be humility. It whispers through the voice of the well-meaning friend, the cautious parent, the rational mind. And if you are not watchful, you will let it in. Not through the front door, but through the cracks of emotional familiarity. Because doubt does not always scream. Sometimes it sounds like you. It will say, maybe it's not the right time. It will say, I don't want to get my hopes up. It will say, let me just be practical for a moment. But let me tell you this with absolute clarity. Every one of those thoughts is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Every one of them is the old identity reaching for the mic again, trying to soften your stance, trying to dim the light just enough to delay your resurrection. And if you let it, if you call it maturity or balance or realism, you will slowly, quietly hand back everything you claimed. You must learn to see these imposters, not with judgment, but with authority. You must look at the inner voice that says, don't be too confident, and recognize it as the final disguise of self-betrayal. You must hear the thought that says, maybe this is too big, and remember that nothing is too big for the I am. There is no scale in imagination. There is no size in God. There is only state. And any voice that tries to measure your desire, to shrink your faith, to dilute your conviction, that voice is not wise. It is not cautious. It is not protective. It is simply doubt in disguise. And it must be dismissed, not because you are angry, but because you are clear. When you feel the subtle pull of just checking, know this: checking is doubt. When you feel the urge to seek reassurance, know this: reassurance is dependence. And when you find yourself endlessly analyzing, tweaking, asking others for feedback on your dream, know this: analysis is often the enemy of assumption. You are not here to be careful. You are not here to be reasonable. You are here to assume with such boldness, such inner finality, that there is no room for commentary. Your state is your answer. Your being is your proof. And anything that invites you to second-guess that being, no matter how polite, no matter how logical, must be cast out as spiritual sabotage. Because doubt no longer comes through the front gate. You've already closed that. Now it tests the windows. Now it mimics your old tone. Now it speaks your name with the voice of the past. But you must recognize that voice is dead, that self is buried, and you will not resurrect it. You are no longer available for questions about what's already done. You are no longer entertaining old vibrations in new outfits. You see clearly now, and that clarity is your shield. Your assumption is not up for debate, and your new state has no room for subtle sabotage. Every great builder returns to the blueprint. Every king begins the day with command. Every conscious creator, before he enters the world of shadows, aligns with the substance of things not seen. And so must you, not because the law needs ritual, but because the mind, untended, will return to its oldest song. The reinforcement ritual is not a spell. It is a remembering, a holy rhythm that keeps your frequency stable as the tides of the world try to make you forget. The moment you wake, before your feet touch the floor, before your phone fills your temple with noise, before the outer world begins to pretend it is real, you must speak from the end, not to try to make it happen, but to remind your being who it already is. You lie still, you breathe into your belly, and you speak. I am already the man who has. I walk as the man who owns. I feel as the one for whom it is done. This is not becoming. This is being. What I have assumed is already forming, and what I feel is planting the shape of my world. You do not speak to get something. You speak to remain someone. You speak to seal the identity, to settle the vibration before the world offers you 1,000 chances to betray it. The words are not magic, but the state they invoke is. And if you do this daily, the morning becomes sacred. Not motivational, not inspirational, but sovereign. It becomes the moment you return to the throne, and just as you begin the day in command, you end it in confirmation. At night, when the body is soft, when the senses begin to fade, when the mind enters the womb of the subconscious, you rehearse the end. You drift into the fulfilled scene. You replay the moment, not of getting, but of being. Not of waiting, but of already living it. You saturate the inner man with the knowing. It is done. It is done. It is done. This is not fantasy. This is assumption in practice. This is identity repetition. And repetition, not effort, is what molds the inner self. The same way the sculptor chips again and again, you chip away what doesn't belong, not with force, but with truth spoken nightly, silently, faithfully. Some days it will feel electric, other days quiet, but it is not the emotion that matters. It is the return, the daily turning away from the lie and back to the I am. The practice of becoming unshakable, not by feeling powerful, but by staying faithful to your chosen frequency. The world will not understand this. They will say it is delusion, detachment, a waste of time. Let them speak, let them sleep. You are not here to explain the ritual. You are here to live its fruit. You are here to let them see your life shift and wonder how. And you will not tell them, because this is sacred. Morning and night, 2 thresholds, 2 altars. And at both, you return home. You assume again. You align again. You begin and end not as a seeker, but as a son. Now we end where all true transformation begins, not with a new fact, not with another technique, but with an identity so rooted in truth that it renders doubt irrelevant. You do not need more answers. You need fewer contradictions. You do not need to silence the mind. You need to stop listening to the voice that was never you. And that voice, the one that asks, what if? The one that whispers, maybe not yet. The one that speaks with the tone of your old self. That voice holds no authority anymore. Doubt was never a sign that you were careful. It was always a sign that you were dislocated from power, from truth, from the inner throne. You forgot that you are the Word made flesh, that your world does not obey hope, it obeys identity. And now, finally, you remember. You see that the world was not resisting you, it was reflecting you. You see that the block was never outside. It was your loyalty to the man who thought he wasn't yet enough. But that man is gone now. He dissolved the moment you refused to feed him. The moment you turned from questioning to commanding. The moment you stopped trying to earn and started assuming. And now, what once felt like discipline becomes ease. What once felt like effort becomes breath. What once felt like resistance becomes wind at your back. Because you no longer negotiate with the illusion of lack. You live from the end. You speak only from fulfillment. You move only from completion. And when doubt returns, for it may knock again, dressed in subtler clothing, you do not answer. You do not defend your state. You do not explain your faith. You smile silently and walk as if it never called your name, because it didn't, not anymore. Its frequency cannot reach the altitude you now inhabit. You are not hoping. You are not waiting. You are not becoming. You are. and the world is adjusting. Say nothing. There is no need. You are already the vibration. The change has already occurred. You are not here to comment. You are here to command. Not with words, but with stillness. Not with effort, but with presence. So do not share this video out of excitement. Do not write of your certainty. Let your silence become prophecy. Let your being do the speaking. Walk through this day as one for whom nothing is missing, as one who does not consult the old world for confirmation. Move as if your presence shifts the room. Breathe as if the very air recognizes who you are now. You are the answer. You are the change. You are the fulfilled state walking silently